Hi, my name is Victoria Vizzini, and my project that I'm going to present to you today is called The Effect of an Unfamiliar Non-Native Accent on Preschoolers' Comprehension of Language. I did this through the Infant and Child Development Center at Northwestern University under the advisement of Sandra Waxman. So first I'm going to start by distinguishing native versus non-native accented speech. And so to understand this, children who are learning English from native versus non-native speakers are going to have different expectations for acoustic features of the language and pronunciations of words. So for example, someone who's learning English in the United States versus someone who's learning English within the United Kingdom are going to have different expectations and acoustic features because they're learning in different contexts and they are learning in those different acoustic settings. So also to sort of introduce a different idea as well, familiar versus novel words. Familiar words are words that children should know, and words like spoon and baby, versus words that are novel, which are words that we don't expect children to have been exposed to. And for the particular accented speech studies that we look at, they often use words that are not actual English words like cham, neem, dax, vep. And lastly, I'm going to introduce the idea of supportive versus neutral contexts. Supportive contexts are when you have use a known verb to predict the object of the sentence. So for example, you can eat the word eat allows the child to predict that the object that will follow in the sentence will be a food item. So you can eat the apple. They'll know that it should be a food item. Versus a neutral sentence context where children will not be able to predict the object of the sentence. So you can find the apple. By the time you get to the word apple, that's when you know when you're supposed to look to the apple. And then across age, children do better at being able to identify novel and familiar words in native versus non-native accented speech, and they're better able to use supportive contexts across those ages as well. So this particular research is looking at, one, do preschoolers match an accented familiar word with its referent, even in the presence of a novel image as a potential candidate? Two, can preschoolers match a non-native accented novel word with its referent? And three, can they use a known verb to identify a word in accented speech? And so something this study is doing that previous accented studies have not done in the past is utilizing a 4-item display. So previous studies used 2 items, which has some limitations. So they'd have an image of a spoon and a baby. It allows for more process of elimination because spoon doesn't sound like baby. So if they say, can you see the spoon? The child will be like, well, that word sounds a little bit more like spoon than it sounds like baby, even in an accent. And so they'll be able to use process of elimination, not actually comprehend the word. And then also it doesn't account for the fact that children are being presented often with more than just 2 words as choices. And also that some of the words that we want children to know are words that they're unfamiliar with. We want them to learn novel words as they get older. And so we account for this with the 4-item display. So in the familiar trials, which I'll talk about in a moment, we look at a target image, 2 familiar distractors, and 1 novel distractor. And then we have, for the novel trials, a novel distractor, a novel target, and 2 target distractors. And we're recruiting 4 to 5-year-old children because that's the age when children are entering preschool, and that's the formalized learning setting. We are using American accented English for the native and Turkish accented English for the non-native accented speech. And we're using an online eye tracking software called Look It from MIT's Early Childhood Cognition Lab. And so we have 2 conditions. We have native versus non-native conditions, and we also have 3 trial types: familiar supportive, familiar neutral, and novel. For familiar supportive, for the familiar trials in general, we are using a target image that is a familiar word, so like bus or dog. The difference being a supportive context uses a word as a known verb like drive versus neutral context, which is used as a word like find. Novel will use a supportive context and we will have the novel word be the target image. So for example, you can wear the cham and expecting them to look to the kimono. We're measuring efficiency and accuracy, so how quickly the children look to the image within the target image within the trial, and does the child spend 25% of the time looking to the target image above chance. And because the study was done in a pandemic, we had a lot of delays, and so we were not able to start collection until much later. So we're currently in data collection. However, I'll tell you my predicted results. So children will be able to recognize the target image in both native and non-native accented speech. However, they should do better in the native condition than non-native accented speech. We also predict that children will do better across the study. So throughout the study, the children should get better at the tasks because they're getting more exposed to the task and more exposed to the accent for the non-native accented speech condition. And then children should be able to identify the target word faster in supportive contexts than neutral contexts. And the implications are that as our world is becoming more interconnected and globalized, there's a higher likelihood of a child encountering an accented teacher and or having a different accent from their teacher and or peers. And so it's important to understand what are the processing costs or what are some of the costs in terms of efficiency and accuracy for children processing non-native accented speech compared to native accented speech. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much.